Schools of Superior 1880s to 1920s. Thanks to the Douglas County Historical Society staff, volunteers, and members of other organizations. Special thanks for financial support for this exhibit from the family of Gudrun McCartan, a teacher at Nelson Dewey and East High Schools from 1920 to 1955. The video and exhibit are dedicated to all faculty and staff of the Superior Schools 1856 to current. Construction on the first school in West Superior started in 1884. What was known as the West Superior School was located at the northwest corner of North 7th Street and Hewitt Avenue. This school would later be moved 8 blocks south near where the old Blaine School would be constructed in 1893. In 1899, when an addition to Blaine started, this building was moved again near the Erickson School. Carpenter was one of the first 2 brick schools with construction starting in 1888. It was located facing Hewitt Avenue between North 6th and North 7th Streets. Additions were added in 1898 and 1914. Carpenter was used as a meeting place for community organizations in the evenings. A Hebrew school also made use of the building, giving instruction in religion and the Hebrew language. It was used as a school until 1964. The first Nelson Dewey School was built in 1888, with an addition constructed in 1901. This first Nelson Dewey School sat behind the second building that replaced it in 1934. Originally, Nelson Dewey housed kindergarten to 12th grades. Grades 7th to 12th moved to East High School when it was built in 1924. The second Nelson Dewey School is now apartments. Blaine was one of 6 schools constructed in 1893. Pressure for new high school quarters led to an addition in 1899. Continued growth of Superior resulted in a separate high school being constructed in 1910. This original Blaine School was replaced by a new Blaine School in 1951. One of my favorite photos is the one in the lower left with a cow in front of Blaine. The first of 3 schools named Bryant in Superior. It was another of the 1893 schools. A gymnasium was added in 1924. The middle photo shows this addition. In 1957, a new Bryant School was built behind the first one. The new school faced John Avenue. The 1924 gymnasium addition became part of the second Bryant School. A third Bryant was constructed in 1997 with all parts of the former school being razed. The original Cooper School was a duplicate of Bryant, only using a lighter color of brick. Additions were constructed in 1903 and 1926. This first Cooper School was in use until 1970 when it was replaced with a new Cooper School. In 2019, the third school named Cooper was completed on the same site. Erickson was built in 1893 with additions in 1904, 1952, and 1956. Available records are incomplete to give a year-by-year census. However, in 1919, the book History of Superior Junior High Schools reveals, since 1917, Erickson School has been a junior high by adding the 9th grade to the established elementary school. Like Bryant and Lincoln in the very early years, Erickson also housed a small number of high school students in a classroom. House School was located along Banks Avenue between North 23rd and 24th Streets, where the parking lot is now for Golden Apartments. The school was razed in September of 1966, however the 1926 gymnasium addition was saved for several years and continued to be used by the community. Children's early readers author Laura Runkle, who had taught at Blaine, came back to Superior when she was offered the job as principal of House School. Lincoln was built near one of the early wooden frame schools known as the Uppertown School or Central Park School. A gymnasium and additional classrooms were added in 1924. By 1946, it was apparent the old part of the school needed to be abandoned. During the summer of 1948, Old Lincoln was razed with the exception of the 1924 addition. A new Lincoln was created by remodeling and expanding the 1924 addition with 2 additional classrooms. Lincoln was used as a school until 1994 and razed about a year later. Early Superior saw a need for a school on Connors Point. Sawmill owner William Kimball built one of the first schools in 1882 using his own funds. By 1891, 5 teachers occupied 4 one-room schoolhouses on Connors Point. The first brick school on Connors Point was completed in 1894. On the morning of February 5, 1901, a fire broke out with approximately 300 children in the building. All were able to get out. The school was a total loss. A new building was soon completed, however, with the railroads buying up much of the Connors Point land and many people moving to other parts of the city, the school was only in use until 1908. When Franklin was built in 1905, the school had 5 classrooms, one being in the basement with 2 on each of the other floors. The 1917 addition increased the number of classrooms to 14. The basement contained a manual training room with 18 workbenches. There was also a finishing room, stock room and pattern room. Domestic science room was also located in the basement. With the addition, Franklin accommodated both elementary and junior high age students. A gymnasium and auditorium were used for school functions and community gatherings. Elizabeth McCormick, principal in 1919, wrote the junior high motto, "We serve, all for each, and each for all." Overcrowding at Blaine required a high school building to be built. Original plans were for a 2-story structure, however those were altered to 3 stories prior to the beginning of construction of Central High School in 1909. Originally called just Superior High School, the school was sometimes referred to as Central. When East High School was completed in 1924, the name Central High School became official. The school was completed in 1910, opening in the fall. An addition for manual arts was constructed in 1923 thanks to a legacy gift from the estate of Andrew Webster. Webster was the founder of the Webster Chair Manufacturing Company in South Superior. A final addition was completed in 1932, which included a gymnasium, library, and study hall. What is now UW Superior was called the Normal School. Normal schools were for teacher training with programs from 1 to 4 years in length. A fire in 1914 destroyed the original main building. A new building was completed in 1915, and 2 years later a training school building was completed. Public school students could apply to attend the training school. Normal school student teachers in training provided the classroom instruction under the supervision of what was called a critic teacher. In 1926, the building was renamed to McCaskill in honor of the late Virgil McCaskill, who was the president of the school from 1907 until his death in 1922. A second building named McCaskill was built in 1959. The original McCaskill Training School building is now known as Erlandson Hall. Superior was still growing rapidly in the years prior to 1920. Even with the construction of Superior High School, Blaine was again overcrowded. A new school was necessary in the central part of the city. A site on North 21st Street was chosen. There was a desire to name the new school after a local person. Other names suggest were H. Grace, a early attorney in Superior, and Faith Helen Rogers, a young nurse from Superior who fell ill and died on her way to Europe to help with the war effort in 1918. Naming the school after Martin Pattison received the most support. Mr. Pattison had died in December of 1918, just a year after gifting 600 acres, around Manitou Falls, to the public. The first principal of Pattison School was Laura Runkle, who served in that post until her retirement in 1925. The oldest part of Nelson Dewey, built in 1893, had greatly deteriorated by the 1920s. It was decided to build a new school for the upper grades. East High School opened as a senior-junior high school in the late winter of 1924. Old Nelson Dewey would continue to be used for the lower grades until it was replaced 10 years later. In 1956, improvements were made and a much-needed music department and band room were added. East housed 7th to 12th grades until 1950. High school grades 9th to 12th continued until 1965, when the new Superior Senior High School opened at 28th and Catlin. East became a junior high and then a middle school until 2002. Superior's Normal School was built in 1896. The purpose of normal schools was the instruction and training of both male and females in the theory and art of teaching in all the various branches of good common education. Additions to the original main building were added in 1908 and 1912. A girls' dorm, Crownheart, was constructed in 1910. Male students found accommodations off campus. In March of 1914, a fire destroyed the building. Classes were moved to the nearby Superior High School until the new main building, now called Old Main, was completed in 1915. I hope you enjoyed this presentation on Superior School's 1880s to 1920s. Please consider supporting Douglas County Historical Society with a membership. Membership information can be found on the website at douglashistory.org.